Hey there folks, I'm Mark in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. I did not expect this week to be that tumultuous. Now granted, a major part of this comes from the minor album bomb courtesy of Summer Walker, which is just into the cutoff, which means I'll be covering every entry in detail, which I honestly don't mind given my curiosity into all the hype there, but there was a surprising amount of movement on the Hot 100, which makes for the sort of busy week that I'm actually kind of intrigued to cover, so yeah, strap in. Lots here. And for once, that actually includes our top 10, where we actually do have a new number 1, driven off of monster streaming and great sales, Highest in the Room by Travis Scott. Now, I'm not precisely surprised this got here. We'll talk about quality when I review the song, but despite the slow radio, this means that it probably won't hold the number 1 for last week, but the fact that it blew past Truth Hurts by Lizzo doesn't shock me at all, pushing that song down to number 2 because despite radio dominance, it got unseated in sales, really pushed back on streaming, and seems to have actually peaked on the radio. And that's also how I see a song like Señorita by Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello at number 3, and it's also suffering losses in other categories. Again, what did I say? When real competition comes along, this sort of thing will happen. And there's more of it in our second new top 10 entry, 10,000 Hours by Dan and Shay and Justin Bieber at number 4, which topped the sales charts this week and had pretty damn robust streaming and YouTube. Although not quite as strong as it could have been in that category. More importantly, it's actually got real radio traction, so I kind of expect this to stick around. Whether that's a good thing or not, we'll discuss later on. What is important is that it blew right past Someone You Love by Lewis Capaldi, pushing it back down to number 5, although it's not cutting back on the radio momentum, which means this is probably going to rebound too. Lovely. And on that note, Circles by Post Malone is still fighting its way up to number 6 with a lot of consistency across the board, but especially on radio, and it bowled right past No Guidance by Chris Brown featuring Drake at number 7, which still has a lot of streaming and radio traction too. Joy. Now, none of this is good news for Ransom by Lil Tecca down to number 8, where it lost that streaming crown, and with radio momentum stalling out, not a good sign. Also not good for Bad Guy by Billie Eilish down to number 9, which is bleeding in all categories, and also for Panini by Lil Nas X, being muscled back to number 10, even despite still having okay radio traction and streaming. Again, I can kind of see this rebounding, but I'm still not sure it's got enough to be bigger. We'll have to see there. Now this takes us to our losers and dropouts, which in the latter case is only one big one and is Without Me by Halsey, which is finally gone after spending a full year on the Hot 100. Thank God it's over. Now, the majority of our losers, they're really just the remnants of album bums that are fading away. Mostly from DaBaby with Intro down at 32, Bop at 41, Vibes at 46, Toes with Lil Baby and Moneybagg Yo at 67, Raw Shit with Migos at 90, and Popstar featuring Kevin Gates at 97. But we still did get some leftover Post Malone as well, with Take What You Want featuring Ozzy Osbourne and Travis Scott continuing to fall down to 50, Enemies with DaBaby at 62, and Die For Me featuring Future and Halsey at 94. Outside of that, well, Boyfriend by Ariana Grande and Social House just continues to tank at 59. Writing on the Wall by French Montana featuring Post Malone and Cardi B collapsed off the debut to 74. Not a good week for Post Malone here. And Southbound by Carrie Underwood abruptly crashed to 88. And I'm not really complaining about any of those, let's be honest. Hell, the only losers that I'm not thrilled to see are Cash Shit by Megan Thee Stallion and DaBaby slipping down to 55. Not good if it's gunning for that year-end list spot, looks like DaBaby dragged us down with them. And Heartmake Medication by John Party slipping back a little bit to 95. Although I'd watch with the radio on this song, we'll see how much it builds traction. Now the big problem is whatever's gonna come along to replace these, cause like with most charts post-album bomb and with not much to fill in the gaps, it's kind of all over the damn place. Nana returns though. Bones by Maren Morris. It might not be a great song, but I'm not gonna complain if the Hosier remix gives it a boost up to 53. And Slow Dancing in the Dark by Joji back at 100. That's only good news, as that song has only grown on me in the past few months since seeing him live. But our gains, okay, there's a few promising ones. Lover by Taylor Swift is somehow getting a boost to 34. That's good. As is Ballin' by Mustard featuring Roddy Ricch at 30. And Higher Love by Kygo and the late Whitney Houston getting even modest success at 85. But most of the rest, yeah, playing games from Summer Walker surging big up to 16 might be explainable thanks to the album bomb, but it's certainly not a good song. I'm not going to be throwing praise towards Prayed For You by Matt Stell at 36, Graveyard by Halsey at 44, or Good Vibes like Chris Jansen at 56. And it gets even worse when you consider songs like Heat by Chris Brown featuring Gunna at 47, What Happens in a Small Town by Brantley Gilbert and Lindsay L at 64, and especially Hot Girl Bummer by Black Bear at 66. The most comfort I'm taking is that all these three are going to be caught between years, and the sooner they fall off, the better. But now on for a pretty healthy list of our new arrivals. Let's start off with number 96, Dance Monkey by Tones and I.
I never seen anybody do the things you do before. They say.
Well, I was wondering when this would eventually hit the American charts. It's been huge everywhere else around the world, and when I say huge, I mean number one in over a dozen countries, including the UK. And when you consider that this is Australian pop artist Tones and I's first real hit off her debut EP, you gotta wonder what's the massive worldwide appeal, or otherwise we're just gonna get another Alice Merton. And yet I kinda hear it, because this song is catchy as sin and pretty damn great to boot. No, it's not a cover of Sage Francis' song of the same name, but it's probably just as fun with the sharper staccato minor key progression, the sinuous bass, and Tones and I bringing a vocal timbre that sounds kind of unique, almost like she's splitting the difference between Sia and Bjork. Definitely an acquired taste, but the time by they get the final hook where they stack her vocals, I was absolutely on board. And what I think makes the song stick as much as it does is the slow burning anger and frustration beneath it. This is a song rooted in Tones and I's time as a busker before she really blew up, and you can tell she's got some legit venom for those who treat her as so disposable, which is nicely augmented when the crescendo builds as a real pushback to all of it. So yeah, this is a great pop song. And while the American market can be kind of reticent to takes on talent from abroad like this, I'd really like to see this blow up. Definitely check this out. Really damn good. Number 92, Potential by Summer Walker.
You got potential.
Okay, first Summer Walker song on the docket. And here's the problem that I know I'm going to face talking about any songs from this project, because if I'm going to be comparing her to the rest of the scene in R&B, Summer Walker's just not wowing me. So while I might like the bass line and the slight organic flutters, the watery waves of auto-tune, the vocal sample, and the mouth noises matching against a snap for percussion, this feels a little bit undermixed, not quite as blended as it should be. And while the contemplation from the sidelines that Summer Walker brings towards some guy, it's not bad, it's also leaving me with the SZA problem that if this felt a little bit more organic, it would probably work a lot better. At the end, just kind of feels undercooked. Not bad, but not really great either. Number 91, Leave 'Em Alone by Layton, Greene, Lil Baby, City Girls, and PNB Rock.
So caught up that I can't leave 'em alone. Can't leave 'em alone.
I'll admit to being kind of surprised that we're still getting singles from that Quality Control compilation project that dropped months ago. This song was first released in late May. You'd think it would have crossed over by now, especially with the video being out for months too. And after listening to this, I'm a little bit surprised it hasn't been bigger. The obvious Sierra interpolation that's just off kilter enough against the trap groove, it actually has some momentum, especially with the blocky scratching that's dropped over Young Miami's verse. A pre-chorus from PNB Rock that's actually surprisingly sticky for me, and arguably solid verses from everyone here, including Lil Baby of all people, who sounds more on beat and clear than he has in a while. I will say that such pretty keys and synths, against that it's a little strange to hear Young Miami then cussing out guys who aren't to her standards, but I gotta admit, it still kind of worked. So yeah, it's actually pretty decent. Not sure it's built to be huge, as I do think Layton Greene's delivery is a little bit underwhelming and anonymous, but again, not bad either. Number 83, Nice to Meet Ya by Niall, Horan.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
So we'll likely get to that new Harry Styles song next week, but am I the only one a little genuinely surprised and a little bit impressed by Niall's move with Nice to Meet Ya? A pivot from a blatant Fleetwood Mac throwback to late 90s dance rock, it should provoke some whiplash, but it's striking how well Niall actually sticks the landing. The minor key piano line riding the firm bass groove into the blown out storm of guitars, that still actually sounds well balanced and pretty well produced. It's inspired a lot of comparisons to U2's 90s run, although But what it reminds me a lot more of, with the effortless vocal charisma and the traces of elegance in the mix, is maybe someone like Robbie Williams. Hell, it might even be better than Robbie Williams, given how much Niall doesn't oversell the song, trying to lean into the hope of preserving some sort of connection with this girl before she takes off after the night. And you know what? He might be suave enough to pull that off. Now, of course, the big question is whether this is actually going to last from the Hot 100. Given the throwback is to a sound of the late 90s that I actually haven't seen a lot of attention being given. I'd say the closest parallel to this era right now is the 1975's People, and even that's playing to a very different vibe of retro dance rock from the late 90s. But you know what? I kind of hope this sticks around anyway, because this kicks ass. Great song. Number 80, Over It by Summer Walker.
Breaking these niggas down like an animal.
Okay, let's tone the energy back for another Summer Walker song. And seriously, that cheap sounding gloss that she drowns all her tones in, especially her overweight bass beat and percussion, it's just a tone that doesn't flatter her, especially given how clumsy her vocal line sounds on this song with even worse backing vocals. And as for the song here, it's an extended flex on how she wants a guy to be able to handle her, but nobody around her can actually do it. And yet all I'm left thinking is that if the writing was a little bit sharper in the rhyme structure, I might actually believe her, because this is mediocre as hell. Next, number 79, Drunkdialing LODT by Summer Walker. You know, Summer, just mashing two songs together is not a pass for not writing a complete song, but I can see why it could potentially work here against the watery slur. It's a questionable drunk call late at night to her partner London on the track. Unfortunately, that would involve competently mastered vocals and a melody that sticks out against the drippy clank of the percussion, and any sort of real transition into that lo-fi guitar warp. Sadly, it just feels shambling and really undercooked, potentially representative of what that scene is, sure, but hardly glamorous, or lacking the subtext and even text to imply more here. Kind of a shame, this had potential. Just not that good. Number 73, Body by Summer Walker. So is it just me, or maybe just don't take an obvious R&B sample that's already in circulation on a charting hit and then chipmunk it for your album, especially when your song is considerably less impressive? Yeah, Mustard already used that 702 sample for Ballin', which we actually already talked about, and Body doesn't come close to being as catchy or interesting as a sex song, whereas Summer Walker meanders through options whether or not she should call up this guy for sex, even though she's got a boyfriend. And look, maybe I'm just not impressed by the puddle of auto-tune that she's swimming in, but normally these questions would carry a little bit more weight if Summer's exploration just didn't default to, I don't know what I want, except everything. So yeah, not a lot of time for this sort of thing either. Next, number 68, Stretch You Out by Summer Walker featuring a Boogie with the Hoodie. Okay, a bubbly slice of R&B off some spare twinkles and slow clanking snaps with too much auto-tune featuring a Boogie. This is two acts in their comfort zone, so why do I feel like nobody brought their A game or even their D game whatsoever? Yeah, the hook is raunchy and how it repeats how she wants to stretch him out. That's not how that works, Summer. And then makes him come, but then her verse describes every reason why he's toxic, both in bed and outside of it, seeming to set up a kiss-off in the final lines, and yet am I the only one who feels like it doesn't materialize as well as it should? Part of this is the fact that A Boogie is way too sincere and trying to sound love-struck and care about her feelings, which is kind of not what she implies, as ill doesn't know how to pronounce baguettes. But again, the song just doesn't feel very well constructed or hit much of a punchline, and that's exasperating as all hell. Definitely a weaker cut that only really charted high because of the feature, and yet when it's not even a good feature, I hope this doesn't stick around. Not good. Number 61, I'll Kill You by Summer Walker featuring Jhene Aiko.
I've been waiting so long for a love like this.
Okay, we reached the final two Summer Walker songs that I was actually genuinely interested in. The first featuring the artist who really paved a lot of the road in this brand of R&B, and who frankly does it considerably better than so many in this lane, Summer Walker included. And here, Okay, look, Jhene gets a whole verse, and she's in a different ballpark when it comes to vocal texture and subtlety, not demanding the suffocating lake of autotune that normally drowns out Summer Walker's tone against the spare synth and cheap trap snare. Jhene just sounds better. And frankly, that inner core of confidence and refinement means that when she says she's gonna kill every girl who ever approaches her man, and then could well kill him if he crosses her, while still making it all seem sensual, it's convincing. But you know what? Outside of a good verse, honestly, there's just not a lot here. And now I want that new Jhene album to drop eventually. It's not like Chris Brown putting Usher on a song in terms of a mismatch in talent. But while we're on that subject, number 42, Come Through by Summer Walker and Usher.
Put it down on you. You made me wanna be paid.
Okay, look, I'm a longtime fan of Usher. Low-key sensual R&B, it's an underused layer in his arsenal, especially with cuts like Climax, and even if Summer Walker isn't on his level of charisma, I had hopes this would be good, until you realize the only reason Usher is here is because they're gratuitously sampling one of Usher's late 90s cuts on You Make Me Wanna in a glorified remake, and he probably just demanded placement on the song. And it's frankly disgraceful how much he just steals the entire song here, not only pitching the autotune to the side for his voice, but also showing a tone of energy and groove that even London's clumsy production can't mask. Hell, even the content runs in the territory of Usher showing up for a quick fuck that was expected to be disposable, but because he's Usher, she desperately wants to do it all again. She's intrigued. Not gonna lie, it's not a bad flip of the content. It's probably the Summer Walker song I like here the most, but it's very telling that every song that I've actually liked from her had a major feature that stole the show. But I am going to be utilitarian and say that if it gets Usher and Jhene Aiko charting hits again, I'll take what I can get. Number 11, Bandit by Juice WRLD and Youngboy Never Broke Again.
She the definition of a bad bitch stoler. I'm the definition of a bandit.
Oh look, two also-rans teaming up for a song that only debuted as high as it did because of name recognition and a video that blew up on YouTube. Goddamn great. Now I will say the hook's at least competently structured as the tinny flutters and the leaden trap beat behind it, but we're still stuck with Juice WRLD and Youngboy as the main acts here, so we're stuck with mindless drug abuse and gunplay to woo this girl, who Youngboy then says that once he gets her, he owns her. Charming. Now, by the standards of both acts, this is far from the worst we've seen. Just kind of oily, unpleasant, and kind of forgettable overall. And yeah, it leaves me utterly baffled why anyone would consider either of these guys attractive for these sort of fantasies. Well, you know what? Preteen white boys need to buy the numbers regurgitated flexing too, which means I'm not in that demographic, and I don't have a lot of use for this at all. Still kind of sucks. Next, number 4, 10,000 Hours by Dan and Shay and Justin Bieber.
Oh, if that's what it takes to learn that sweetheart of yours.
Am I the only one still a little bit amazed at the power of Justin Bieber? That for a pop country act like Dan and Shay, it only takes the cosign to propel this into the top 10? Because as someone who has been covering this borderline boy band duo since 2014, this is one of their most saccharine and least country songs they've ever made, with basically the last remainder of that sound coming through in a guitar timbre that's now stuck with your standard blocky pop percussion. Hell, I'd say it's a borderline boy band ballad from the late 90s, especially when the chimes slide in for the bridge, until you factor in how Justin Bieber's huskier tone barely even tries to contribute to the harmonies. It feels increasingly anonymous. And when you realize that this song is otherwise an incredibly rote love song, one of the least interesting songs that really any of these guys have been involved in, well, at least Dan and Shay kind of sound sincere, but I'm not really gripped by this. Again, it's not bad per se, but the fact that this might stick around, not wowing me either. And finally, number 1, Highest in the Room by Travis Scott.
Hope I make it out of here.
So at this point, I'm still a little bit shocked that Travis debuted at number 1. Most because I seem to remember him releasing songs that are not all that different from this across the past couple of years, and I'm not hearing what sets this apart that makes it so special. The guitar might be a little bit faster against the eerie trembles of melody against the washed out mix and cheap rattling trap whir, but even if I never really liked Sicko Mode, that song kind of earned the #1 spot for being over the top and fractured in kind of an interesting way. And the piano and synth breakdown here does not get there. Now granted, the underwhelming content doesn't help. Travis Scott is high as hell, and he rambles through musings about guns, cars, and his girl who might be perturbed that he is way too high. But hey, he's talking about being high on ideas, right? Yeah, whatever ideas inspired this feel just as insubstantial. I'm not really catching the vibe. So not precisely a bad song, but it just sounds like album filler and definitely not a lead-off single. I'm not gonna complain when this falls off or chooses not to stick around. Just saying, that could very well happen. But that was our week, and it's kind of funny how the best of the worst fell out pretty fast, because Summer Walker only has one in the dishonorable mentions with Stretch You Out with A Boogie with the Hoodie. Really, of her debuts, is the most blatantly flawed, but it isn't worse than Bandit by Juice WRLD and Youngboy Never Broke Again, which is just tired and increasingly annoying with every step. Neither of these guys deserve more fame. Now, if that's the worst song though, it's probably wound up being a pretty good week, and that's actually reinforced by our two legit great songs for the best. And as much as I thought Nice to Meet You by Niall Horan had a lock on the best of the week, he's only getting honorable mention because Dance Monkey by Tones and I is getting the best. Hell, I'm shocked by how well this clicked with a terrific groove and a great build-up, and I'd love to see it grow into a significant hit. It broke worldwide? I want to hear more. But in the meantime, I'm not even going to predict what album bomb could potentially hit next week. We'll just have to see. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.